Hey there, my name is Megan and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing the anti-TBR tag. So I've seen this tag going around and I actually thought it was a lot of fun because it talks about kind of unpopular opinions and books that you don't want to read. I don't know who the original creator is, but if I can find out, I will link that video or channel in the description below. But before we go ahead and get on into the questions, if you are not already subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well as the little bell icon so you can be notified every time I post new bookish content. I post new videos every Sunday and every Wednesday and sometimes Friday. Also, don't forget to check out all of the links to my social media, which is also in the description box, including a link to my Buddy Read Discord server and my Patreon, where you can be entered into winning quarterly book giveaways. There are 8 questions for this tag, and the first question is, name a popular book that you have no interest in reading. For this, I'm going to choose a 2020 release, and that is My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. So this is a book that I actually watched a couple of reviews on because I was deciding if I wanted to read it. It's not a genre that I normally gravitate to. It's just a contemporary, I guess, like literary fiction. But it follows a girl named Vanessa who, when she was 15 years old, had a sexual affair with her high school English teacher. And when she's in her 30s, an accusation from another student comes about saying that she had been abused by the same English teacher. And Vanessa has to basically relive all of those experiences because she thought that the relationship was true love and kind of come to terms with the fact that it might have been abuse. And I've just heard that this book is very emotional and just gripping, and it's really good, and there's just so much that went into it. But, I also read for escapism, and I love jumping into fantasy worlds and, worlds that mirror our own but are also completely different. And I just don't really want to read a book that is either going to make me sad or depressed because things like this do happen in real life. So despite the raving reviews, I think I'm going to have to pass on it. Question number 2 asks, a classic that you have no interest in reading or an author, like a classic author that you have no interest in reading. And I'm actually going to choose the Iliad by Homer because I tried reading the Odyssey, like the whole Odyssey, and I got a decent chunk of the way through, and I just don't like it. Like, I don't like the epic poem structure, and if you've been watching my channel for any amount of time, you know that I'm not a huge fan of Greek mythology. I've just never been interested in it, and I just can't garner any interest in it. I've never even read the Percy Jackson series, and I know that the Iliad is focused on the Battle of Troy and less, I think, of like the intervention of the gods like the Odyssey is, so it might be more of like a historical fiction, but just for the length of it and the fact that I can't really mesh with that writing style of the epic poem like the Odyssey is written in, I don't want to, force myself to read it. And I actually own both of them in this really nice like leather bound edition that came with a package gift set I got 1 year, and I have it. It's beautiful, but I'm just probably never going to read it. Question number 3 is a problematic author whose books you have no interest in reading. I'm really not going to answer this question because I feel like it's not for me to judge what someone writes about. If they want to write about whatever they write about, let them. If I don't agree with what they write about, I'm just not going to read their books. So I'm not going to sit here and bash an author because of what they choose to write. I just won't read their books. Question number 4 is an author that you've read a couple of their books and decided that they're just not for you. And this is actually my most recent DNF, and that is Kiersten White. I have read, or I tried to read Slayer by her last year, and I had an art copy of it, and I was so excited to get it because it's a Buffy the Vampire retelling, and I love Buffy. And I DNF'd it. It's currently sitting in my classroom. And then this is a Camelot retelling. It's the Guinevere Deception. I love Arthurian retellings. And I DNF'd this, spoiler for my, November wrap-up, but I DNF'd this at 85%. And I was really nervous going into it because of my experience with Slayer, but I do not connect with her writing style. I do not find that her characters are super, super deep. And despite the fact that this was a setting in Camelot with King Arthur and Guinevere and all the things I love, I just couldn't get through it. So I've decided that her books are just not for me. Question 5 is a genre that you have no interest in reading or can't get into. And really, I'll read any genre. The genres that I pick up least are just straight up romance. I've read one this year, and then I read a second romance, but it had a subplot. So I don't usually gravitate towards just straight up romance. I also used to say horror. I don't gravitate towards horror, but I read 2 horror books last month and The Haunting of Hill House, and I had so much fun. I really want to read more horror and get into horror. So if you guys have any recommendations about good horror books that aren't Stephen King, because I kind of know where I'm going to start with Stephen King, but if you want to recommend me any other horror books, like, let me know in the comments, because I'm super open to horror. I've also never read psychological thriller or crime thriller. I'm not opposed to reading them. I just have not read them. So if you have any suggestions for that genre also, let me know. So yeah, I'm pretty open to reading any genre. Question 6 is a book you've bought that you'll probably never read, which is kind of like counterintuitive because I feel like you would buy books to read them. Most of the books I own, I am going to read, but there's actually one. There is one this time. I can answer this question that I went ahead and put into my unhaul pile yesterday when I was reorganizing my bookshelves that I know I'm never going to read. And that book is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. I picked this book up for $1 at a used bookstore. Originally, I think it's almost $30, and it is like a historical fantasy. It's a retelling of, I believe, the Napoleonic Wars, and we have 2 magicians, Strange and Norrell, that are helping to defeat the British, to defeat Napoleon in these wars. And I think there's some other things. I know that there's fairies involved in this because I did watch some of the Netflix TV show, but like, this book is huge. And I personally am not a fan of books that retell history because the whole time in my head I'm like, you can't redo history, it's history. So that's one thing I don't like about it. And then I've also heard that this book is super dry. The dialogue is very dry. And like, just over time, I've kind of lost interest in reading it, and I'm not upset about getting rid of it because I literally paid $1. 7 is a series that you have no interest in reading or a series that you have DNF'd, and I'm going to choose the Sookie Stackhouse series by Charlene Harris. This is the books that the True Blood TV show was based off of, if y'all don't know. And I read the first 2 books in this series, and they were just completely average 3-star reads for me. I really wasn't that impressed enough to continue with such a long series. I wasn't impressed with the characters, the writing style, how the stories were crafted. I just didn't find that they were that in depth or interesting. And I've just heard bad things about how the series like ends and how it continues on, and that Sookie just like jumps from guy to guy to guy. And it's just not something that I want to spend my time reading. And question 8 is a new release that you have no interest in reading. For this, I'm going to go with Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. I do not have the best track record with Sarah J. Maas. I'm glad that they finally categorized a book of hers as adult because I feel like she writes a lot of like adult content. And, you know, I might have at one time considered reading her book because it was adult, but I feel like it's going to be very similar to her A Court of Thorns and Roses series, which I wasn't a huge fan of. So I just think I'm going to pass on Crescent City. Okay, you guys, so that is it for the anti-TBR tag. Let me know in the comments if you've done this tag. If not, I tag you. I would love to hear your answers, and I will see you guys soon in another video. Goodbye.